It is a Jose Ramirez party here today. The Cleveland Indians star third baseman is staying in Cleveland. The first time we've had a star in my lifetime stay. It is cause for celebration. It is cause for excitement. 7 years. Full no trade. We will get into that. We'll get into opening day. It's hard to believe that it's here and it's going to be overshadowed. But, you know, Jose Ramirez, it is impossible to not make him the central focus of today's show.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Jose Ramirez. I mean, I was smiling ear to ear. Of course, I had a meeting this morning and left my phone. I got a DM from a source in San Diego, of all places. Not someone you would expect, maybe. I don't think a source I've ever revealed before. But he reached out and said, the Padres and the Guardians have talked a significant deal. If this doesn't come together, you know, we're looking at something that's like Gore, Hassel, basically every piece except for Abrams. It was going to be like a 4-for-1 going to Cleveland. But he then, you know, he messaged me later and was like, it's off. He goes, the deal was in place, but it is now off. He is re-signing. And if you look at, Zach Meisel had a fantastic piece today that he also had information from Ken Rosenthal that essentially what was holding things up was a 6th year. That they would be paying for him, you know, giving him $25 million at age 37. They weren't comfortable doing that. They only wanted to go through age 36, which is what this current contract is. And Jose called his representation. He thought about it. He talked with his family, and he's like, staying in Cleveland is what matters. That's where I want to be. Get the full no trade. Keep me there for 7 years. And the front office had done and done. They got a heck of a sweetheart deal. So much so, I had a Mariners reporter just message me what a team-friendly deal. You could tell there was a degree of pissed offness. Like the Mariners could use a third baseman. They were one of those teams, you know, the Mariners, the Blue Jays, the Padres. These were teams that, you know, were just sitting there waiting. Okay, we are going to add Jose. They were all assuming that's who they were going to get. Everyone just kind of assumed this wouldn't come together. The highest contract they had ever given before was Edwin Encarnacion's 3 years, $60 million. This is essentially a 7-year, $150 million contract. Now, what you have to look at is the 2 option years, the sweetheart deals this year and next year, those are still there. The Guardians didn't give him any increased money in these years. They tacked on essentially 5 years, $124 million, so it's a little bit less than $25 million a year. That is a bargain. This is still an incredibly team-friendly deal for who and what he is. What he has done as a performer, what he means to this franchise. It's an incredibly team-friendly deal. Not as team-friendly as his current one, but they're still keeping the current one in place. So now they have Clase and Jose together. You have a minor league system that the last 2 years has been ranked in the top 10 by multiple organizations. A lot of players are starting to hit the big leagues. I know it has been a frustrating offseason. I have been frustrated. It's impossible to not listen to the show and think that I am not frustrated with the inaction. You know, there's a lot of parts and pieces that could have been upgraded very easily. At the end of the day, they kept the star. And I had a lot of people be like, it's not true. They've kept stars. You know, Cookie got a second contract. I love Cookie to death. Was Cookie ever an all-star? He was never really a Cy Young candidate. He was always, you know, at best, he was the second best starter. Now, those were fantastic rotations, don't get me wrong, but Cookie was never a star. And then my one caveat with this whole idea of they didn't keep anyone outside of, barring guys who got hurt. Because that's Grady Sizemore. Yes, technically they kept him, but his injury is the reason that he didn't walk to a bigger deal. And then Travis Hafner came up. What you have to remember about Hafner is, you know, he also had an injury they never quite recovered from, and that he was a bit odd. This is a guy who, I just want to check his birth date. He had a June birth date, so yeah, he essentially didn't get a look in the big leagues till he was almost 26. Gets 300 plate appearances in his age 27, 26 season. Age 28, he hit. And then it was that 27-28, 28-29, 29-30. And then in age 30-31, he started to decline. And then it was health and other things. He signed an extension. He couldn't stay healthy. Like, again, that's more the reason that Travis Hafner stayed in Cleveland wasn't for any other reason than he was, health issues. And the reason he signed the extension that he signed with Cleveland was because he was already 30 years old. He was already an older player, and it was going to pay him well. I mean, you think about the 2010, 11, 12, 13, paying this guy into his mid-30s and giving him, 11 million, 12 million, 13 million. That's why that happened. It's because he debuted so late. So Travis Hafner is a good example, but there's reasons. He had a very late debut. He was already an older player, and then there were some health issues even before his contract. So in my life, this hasn't happened. No one, there's always been, Tommy might have signed a contract, a first one, but he didn't get the second one. He left when he was still one of the most feared hitters in baseball. Jose Ramirez signs a second contract. He's going to stay here. He's going to rewrite a lot of the record books. In the modern era, he is on the Mount Rushmore of this team. He is a complete player, and he is going to be the face of this franchise for a while. And they're keeping him. It's mind-blowing. I'm just going to keep saying that. I'm going to keep smiling. I'll bring the party whistle out. I plan to bring the fake money I have at school and just throw that, but I forgot. It's exciting. We're keeping a player, and it overshadows, I should say. It's a bigger deal than opening day. Disagree? Agree? Let me know over on my Twitter, @FMLBDraft. I do want to take a quick moment and thank everyone for making this your first listen today and every day, wherever it is that you get podcasts. And I also want to go ahead, now that we're 7 minutes in the show, Cardinal Sin, if you're just listening, because it says Jose Ramirez, and you're like, who is this clown throwing balloons and blowing party whistles? My name is Jeff Ellis. I previously wrote at Scout and 24/7 as a lead draft and prospect analyst. I replaced Kylie at Scout, and then Scout got bought by 24/7. I was on many a local drive-in show throughout this country, and in terms of Cleveland itself, I got my start writing at Indians Baseball Insider. I had work up here on the Cleveland Fan, waiting for next year. Did the Tribe win last night? Pretty much any Cleveland website, if I didn't guest host, I was probably quoted for draft material. That is what I was most known for a long time. But I was a kid from Ohio who cut his teeth on the late 80s, early 90s Indians. So I'm just so excited that I skipped the things I'm supposed to put right at the start. I'm just gonna put here in the first third of the show because it's a breath of fresh air. It was getting so tiring, all the negativity. It was getting so tiring, all this Jose Ramirez dread. Because you don't want to lose another player. I've talked about many times. Baseball, as much as I supported the players, I also wanted something to be figured out because it's backbreaking when you are a team like the Guardians that never keeps your talent. And I was like, what are the other teams outside the Rays? And someone's like, well, the Athletics. I'm like, no. In my lifetime, the Athletics kept talent and they signed big name talent. You must not have been there in the 90s. The Athletics did actually get out there. And someone's like, the D-backs. I'm like, the D-backs just re-signed Ketel Marte. They kept David Peralta. They could have kept Goldschmidt. They signed Madison Bumgarner as a free agent. The D-backs have kept talented players. It's not completely unheard of for them. It's essentially the Rays and the Indians, and someone said the Pirates, and the Pirates might be fair, I think. I think those are probably your three teams where you just sit back and go, They don't keep them. They don't keep anybody. Now, the Pirates might have if McCutchen hadn't kind of fallen off a cliff there. But, man, it's, I just got someone else on here saying, well, what about Carlos Baerga? Baerga didn't. Baerga liked to party. Baerga did not keep himself in shape. Baerga signed his contract. He was close to a star-level player. That might be one of the best ones of this type to talk about. He was but he wasn't. Carlos Baerga was very good. Like, I remember, does anyone else remember the pieces in the Beacon Journal? Hit me up on my Twitter at FMLB Draft about like how he was one of like 3 players with like 200 hits, 20 home runs, 100 RBIs, 100 runs, 20 double. It was this really like set of 7 statistics. It was like him and Hank Greenberg, and like one other name. And I think it was like second baseman too. So I think that's what it was. Maybe it was like Robbie Alomar. But it's, you know, I just remember that very specific one. Baerga was very good. So that might be the best one I think I've seen. I just, you know, and that's the thing. Right now, it's just a love fest. I'm enjoying all of the love fest, all the things in here. It felt really good to be a Guardians fan today. Like, more than anything else, it just felt really good to be a Guardians fan, to know Jose is here, and to sit back and be like, okay, Jose's here. I didn't get a chance to talk about Jimenez on tomorrow's show. We're going to talk about him here in segment 2, and why there's a lot of signs pointing to his emergence. Let's get Franmil locked up. Let's go there next. I still think Bieber's going to be probably a no. I don't think that's going to come together. Let's get Franmil. Let's get Quantrell. Let's just start moving these. Let's realize that you've got the beginning of something. Like, even Jeff Passan tweeted that out, right? Like, this is a team with very few commitments, very few entanglements, and a top minor league system, and they've got an MVP locked up for 7 years. And let's be honest, right now, if we're talking about faces of Cleveland sports, Jose Ramirez should absolutely be the face of Cleveland sports. I mean, you can make an argument. Like, I think Myles Garrett is incredibly dynamic, and I really, you know, he's up there, and what Garland and Mobley have done this year is amazing. Jose Ramirez is an MVP level talent. One of the best baseball players of my lifetime, a potential Hall of Famer. Can we really say that anyone else in that group you're feeling confident is on a Hall of Fame track? Maybe Myles Garrett right now. He's a potential Hall of Famer who took less money because he loves the city and wanted to stay here. I mean, he could have made so much more. If he hit the open market, he's getting $30 million a year. I guarantee that. He took $25 million, and he took one less year, and he didn't sit there and be like, okay, give me an opt-out after year 2, or after year, well, probably not after year 2, because that's when the last contract was. But you get my point. Instead of being like, I'll take an opt-out when I'm like 32 so I can then go get bank, he's like, no, I want to stay here. And he got his no trade, and he's staying in Cleveland. And if you're not happy, if you're still griping right now, today, you know, if you want to gripe in 2 days, totally fine. If you want to get back to the griping, I understand. This team still has a lot of holes to fill and a lot of work that needs to be done. But today is a day for happiness. And just, you know, as I said in my Locked On Now, just smile, just enjoy it. We don't get this. This is something that doesn't happen when you're a Cleveland Guardians fan. So just enjoy it. Our first sponsor today are our good friends over at BetOnline. And I'm going to say it again before the season starts. I'm not always the most knowledgeable in this area, but man, Steve Kwan at plus 5,000. If I knew that he was going to play every day, I would totally be putting $20 on that one. I'm just gonna go out and say that now. I'm going to put that out there. State that seems like a chance to really potentially get lucky on a low end bet and make a nice bit of change. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports development, including this week's Masters Championship, odds, podcasts, and reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So even more so, you might want to go and consider my hey, go bet on Steve Kwan. So funny story. Yesterday, I go for a job interview. Not only did the Indians re-sign Jose Ramirez today, I got offered the job, and then I set up another interview today. Already had it set up and got offered that job. So apparently, it's really lucky time for me. If you want to take some of that luck, my recommendation is the Steve Kwan Rookie of the Year part. Now let's talk about Andres Gimenez. So Andres Gimenez, I got into on, let's see what day. It's Wednesday, so it would have been Tuesday online. And right now, there's just so much love in my timeline. I couldn't really necessarily go and pull out all of the talk. I want to give credit to where it's due. Sandy Casimir is a fantastic follow. He's a Rays fan, but he is incredibly intelligent. Posts some stuff that I don't even understand. But he was posting like Jose Ramirez. And the thing about Jose Ramirez is he debuted as mostly a pinch runner in 2013 as a 20-year-old. He was a placeholder in 2014 for because they didn't want to push Francisco Lindor up at shortstop, and that was after the ACAP trade. And then 2015 is really rough. He ends up getting sent down, like really rough. And then 2016, it took the Brantley injury to open up playing time. Like, was he all the jokes about being Juan Uribe's son? Like, they were looking for their baseman since Casey Blake left, and they couldn't find it. And then in 2016, he just plays so well. He ends up, finishing 17th in the MVP that year. And was it after that year that maybe they did the extension for him? I can't remember right now off the top of my head. But 2017, he comes in, and begins the run. We're at third place in the MVP. 2018, third place in the MVP. 2019 is that weird year where, at the end of 2018, he got hurt or he got tired out, like, he had a really bad postseason. He just wasn't hitting it at all at the start of 2019. It was my first year on the podcast. I remember discussing just the struggles that he was having, because Carlos Santana came out house of fire that year, so he was the one actually carrying the offense because Lindor was hurt to start the year. But by the end of the year, like, Ramirez got it all figured out, and then he broke his hamate bone. It was just unfortunate for him. Should have won the MVP in 2020. No doubt in my mind about that. Finished a second. And then sixth last year. He should have been a top 5 candidate again. It's a little bit ridiculous. He was not. But that's what he has done. So why am I talking more about Jose Ramirez? Because, I mean, he is everything right now. But more importantly, he came up with 21. He struggled at 22. He went back came back at 23 at that opportunity. He was an undersized guy. He was still figuring out, like, his game and his body and, just everything he could do. Let's talk about Andres Gimenez now. Another sub 6-foot infielder who, kind of rail thin. I mean, he is rail thin. Who debuted at age 21 for his first real attempt in the big leagues and was a league average bat with plus defense as a 21-year-old. As a 22-year-old, he struggled. Gets into the minors, comes back and plays quite well, plays well in AAA, and had himself a very strong spring. And we're hoping for big things as a 23-year-old. Who does that exactly mirror? Jose Ramirez. Now, again, I'm not saying that Andres Gimenez is the next Jose Ramirez. Jose Ramirez is on the Hall of Fame track. I'm not going to put that comp on any player. But when you're looking at young players, it is not a direct growth curve. Some guys hit the ground running. Like Lindor came up, and the biggest Lindor fan did not think he was going to be what he was. Like, we maybe whispered Jeter-esque with better defense. That it would be, hit tool. No one thought he was going to hit 40 home runs. No one. I didn't talk to anyone. Like, even though we all heard about him, just lighting it up when he visited Safeco and hitting a ton of home runs out of that park, it wasn't really what he was known for. It was a thing. You go back, and I have to laugh because it's like, if you believe the chatter at the time, Seattle was deciding between Danny Holtzen and Francisco Lindor. We can all be thankful by the choice they made. Let that be a lesson. Sorry, Aaron. Don't draft Virginia pitchers. I got to get my digs in. But for Jimenez here, it is, undersized guy, up the middle player, had a rough year but showed signs of life, and now we'll see what he can do here in his age 23 year. He was the centerpiece, and I talked about this on Monday, of the Lindor trade for a reason. They took less to get him. They did. And if you go way back and you listen to my discussions with Ryan of Locked On Mets, like, Ryan didn't want to trade Jimenez. Like, he was willing to trade like Dom Smith plus J.D. Davis to not trade Jimenez. And there was a chance the Guardians could have gotten someone like Dom Smith. But they wanted Jimenez. They liked his ability. They liked what he showed as a 21-year-old in the big leagues, getting bigger, getting stronger. He's listed over here on Baseball Reference at 161. I don't think that's his actual weight. I think he has gotten bigger and stronger. He has listened, to coaching. He has had, great comments about him. And he's got a chance to legitimately step up and become the shortstop of the now and the future. Because he's an above average to plus defender. So if he's playing well there, when Gabriel Arias is ready, you're not going to shift Jimenez if he's playing well. If he's doing both parts of the game well, that's now his position. So you could move Arias to the outfield. He's got the arm. We talked about yesterday, like this team needs a right fielder. You could totally, I bet you he could be a amazing right fielder. You know, he's not the fleetest of foot, but he's not slow. I think it's like a 50, 55 grade skill. He would be fine in right field. With his arm, he could totally make every throw possible. That's the thing, right? This is where this team is, where Straw is Straw, and we hope that he plays well. You've got Quan, who you're hoping is going to take over in left and continue doing what he's done. And then, okay, so let's say everything, like I said, you move, now that you've got third base locked up, if Jimenez plays well, then he locks up shortstop. The one reason I wouldn't put Gabriel at second base is that arm gets wasted. But it's fine if you put him there. Or, you know, when Brian Rocchio is ready next year, you could put him there. It's like, okay, so now we've got this. So where does George Valera play next year? Nice problem to have, right? You know, Nolan Jones, first base. That could be where he ends up. They have so many players that are interesting. We haven't even talked Ty Freeman. You know, there's another one who's, you know, I have my ups and downs with, but he's an interesting player. And this isn't, you know, all of a sudden to change this narrative, but it's just to say, I think the reason that we ended up in this kind of inactive situation was because of what I just talked about. That their focus was on Jose, and that only players that they really seemed to go for were Jess Winker and Matt Olson. I don't think they were even in on Meadows. And it's because Meadows is the Rays moved on from Meadows for, you know, a simple reason. They felt they could get an internal upgrade and then trade him for other assets. He wasn't good enough for the Rays. I think the Guardians felt like their own internal options could end up being better. And I think that's also why we've seen, like, why they didn't go for some of the lesser pieces on the market. I mean, I'm still curious what's going to happen with Conforto. I'd still love to see that Ian Happ Wilson Contreras deal. Like, if you go make that trade, I'm just going to shut up and be happy. That's the final touch. Trade a few pieces, go get that done, and I will be, you know, I will just sit here with my mouth shut and, you know, trade them like three pieces off your 40-man. You know, send Bradley Zimmer back in it, send Jose Tena, who, you know, you got to trade something to get something, right? So you trade those two, and then one other prospect, you know, someone who's a little bit further down the list, who's currently on the 40-man. I don't have it in front of me right now, but you're trying to clear a 40-man space in a deal like that, and that's the deal that I want. If you go and add and make that trade, I consider it a winning offseason. Let's take that next break so we can actually come back and talk about opening day a little bit on the podcast before opening day. But we had to talk Jose Ramirez. I promised Jimenez yesterday, and then we had to talk about him because of the parallels between both of their careers in the early going. Again, not comping, just saying there are some parallels that are interesting to look at. I've talked about this before on the show. Our sponsor for the second half is rockauto.com. Don't be like me. Don't be the guy who knows he needs windshield wipers, knows they're easy to fix and change, and lets them get done when you get your oil changed. Don't pay $60 when you can pay $30. Don't pay twice the price. That's right. If I had just taken the time and been intelligent and gone to rockauto.com, I would have saved myself $30. That $30 is pretty much the equivalent of the jersey I bought myself of Jose Ramirez today after he re-signed. So you could get yourself the equivalent of a free Jose Ramirez jersey. Just about, not counting the shipping and all of that, but you get my point if you go to rockauto.com. It's a family-owned business. One central location keeps their costs down and passes the savings on to you, the consumer. Just make sure when you go to rockauto.com and the How'd You Hear About Us box, you want to let them know that we sent you. So type Locked On MLB, Locked On Guardians, some form of Locked On to let them know we sent you. That is rockauto.com, and make sure you do some form of Locked On to let them know that their advertising money has been well spent. Opening day. It's just totally overshadowed. Okay, so first, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And I want to remind everyone to go check out our buddy who was on the show last Thursday, Lindsay, over at Locked On Prospects. He and I are probably going to do a ton more crossovers as the draft gets close. But now that we've discussed that, so tomorrow's game is going to be, it's fun in terms of pitching. You got Greinke versus Biebs. It's also fun in terms of we're getting the outfield I want. Rosario in left, Straw in center, Quan in right. That is what I said would be my preferred one. just in terms of what they have right now. Now, Steve Kwan to me is the left fielder of the now and the future for this organization, but when you have Rosario on roster, I don't think he's with this team come August. I don't, because his contract expires in a year and a half, and there are so many teams with glaring needs up the middle that, to me, Kwan is just the best bet to be in left field. And then, Reyes, Valera, right field of the future might be in-house. We'll have to wait and see. When I said who wants because I was kind of being taunty when I was like, okay, Blue Jays fans, you can't get Jose Ramirez. Can I offer you a slightly used Ahmed Rosario? And the Locked On Giants host was like, we'll take him. So, again, catching, relief help, something like that could make sense for the Cleveland Guardians when you're looking at what they need. I was just kind of curious. I'm like, yeah, because in terms of who is starting at second base right now for the Giants, Thairo Estrada, right? Wilmer Flores at third base for them. Giants are a little bit beat up. Tommy Listella was supposed to be their second baseman. I know this isn't Locked On Giants, but just to give you an idea of why the Giants could be interested. And hey, we could get old friend Dominic Leon back. I'm kidding. That is an interesting minor league system. There are other players to talk about and or consider if you could work it out. But let's get into tomorrow's matchup. So we're going to save the whole rundown like I've done in the last 2 years where I go position by position, who's got the advantage. We're going to save that for tomorrow's show. Let's just talk about this matchup. Greinke versus Bieber. You've got the outfield the way we like it. It's Bobby Witt's Major League debut. It's a fun matchup. There's a lot to check out. Carlos Santana, it's always nice to see Los in no matter what form. Hopefully it's more of the guy who, the second half Carlos and not first half Carlos. But, I've been on record. I think the Guardians are better than the Royals. A lot of people don't see that, but I'm like, what did this Royals team really do to improve outside of a year of age? What's the improvement here? The players who are young have more experience, but they had a Greinke. Greinke is not, he's almost 39. He's a solid pitcher, don't get me wrong. I thought it was a smart ad. It was a nice ad. It's an easy way to sell things. Brad Keller, Chris Bubik, Carlos Hernandez, Brady Singer. I'd rather have the Guardians rotation. I don't have any doubt about that. And then, Bobby Witt is a very nice player for them. Very good prospect. One of the best in baseball. But is he alone enough for a team that's been pretty consistent? I mean, when was the last time the Royals didn't pick in the top 10? It's been a while. So this isn't, I've been on multiple Royals podcasts. Ryland's a great dude. Royals Report always has me on around the draft. The people who cover the Royals I've found to be just awesome people in general. That Hunter Dozier DH. Hunter Dozier. Has he ever posted a runs created plus over league average? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. He did have, but, in a shortened season. This is a guy, no, it was a full season. He had a 123 in 2019. So in fairness to him, there was that one good year where he did that. And the COVID year was a 104. It was an 82 last year. That's not good. Now he's getting on the wrong side of 30. So, I look at this Royals team, and I don't see where people see that naturally they're the better team now. It doesn't make sense to me. The Guardians probably have the weaker bullpen, but they definitely have the stronger pitching staff. I'm not going to go position by position because we said we'd do that on tomorrow's show. The Guardians do lose the catcher matchup. I will give you that preview. I'm sure everyone is shocked by that. But you'll find the Guardians are going to win most other matchups when you compare these two teams. I don't see this as a team that's quite there yet, and they've promoted most of their prospects. That's the thing to remember is they had all those high picks. A lot of them have not worked out. Most of them are not prospects anymore. I mean, you're kind of hoping Nick Prado at some point is going to get the call up for them and be either a first baseman or a left fielder. You're hoping Daniel Lynch, the lefty, will kind of move into a starter role for them. MJ Melendez is an heir apparent at catcher. But after that, I mean, you've got Asa Lacy, who's the very high draft pick, former Indians draft pick. Alec Marsh is kind of interesting as a depth starter. And I think Kyle Isabel is a potential starting outfielder, but this is where I got into it on the podcast where people were like, no, the Royals and the Tigers have the best minors. I'm like, no, minors aren't just one star player, aren't just two big names. It's the depth, and that is where the Guardians are going to have an advantage. And I don't know. I refuse to believe that they're not going to make some deal. Their 40-man situation, start racking it up now, is a disaster show. Next year, they have just as many hard decisions to make and players they need to add. At some point, they need to take the Rays approach, which is to start, trading someone like Tobias Myers for someone far away. The Guardians added Tobias Myers for someone far away, but they need to start making those kind of deals. They need to start trading. I look at this Royals team, their projected starting outfielder, bench outfielder, Edward Olivares, who we talked about, when we were doing our deep minor league sleepers because he had such good offensive production in the minors. He was part of their return for Trevor Rosenthal. And the only reason they got two arms that were slightly higher, two players that were rated a little bit higher, is because both those players need to be added to the 40-man, and the Padres knew that, so they preferred to trade prospects who they'd have to add rather than ones who were further away. That was a distinct decision by that organization. The Guardians need to make similar calls, and I expect they will. Opening day is exciting. I can't wait to watch some baseball tomorrow. Oh, here's my public service announcements I should call. If you have T-Mobile or Sprint, go into their Tuesdays app. You only have till next Tuesday to do this, but you get MLB TV free right now. So go log in, follow the link, redeem, download the app if you do not have it. But if you have Sprint and or T-Mobile, they're owned by the same one, you can download an app called Tuesdays. You go in, and that'll give you MLB TV free for the year. I live out of market, so it's great for me, and I've gotten it. This is my third year in a row getting it free. So that is my advice. I did want to shout that out. I'll shout it out again tomorrow just in case any listener doesn't listen to this show. I expect this will be our big one this week. I've been Jeff Ellis. This has been Locked On Guardians podcast. And I want to thank everyone for the numbers have been great of late. I assume they're going to get even better as we just have some happiness here. Considering, a big warm hug, like group hug right now. I'm just sending it and all that happiness your way. Jose Ramirez, people were talking about between my smile or in my eyes, you could see the happiness. I guess it was just very obvious. And if you are a fan of the Guardians, I don't know how you couldn't be happy, at least today. Kudos to everyone involved who got that done. Bright future. This is step one. We got to keep going. They need to keep adding. But this was a great first step. Weird pause, sorry. Now, again, I want to thank everyone. We're getting more reviews. We're up to 103 on iTunes, so more iTunes reviews. We're at 86 subscribers. Let's get to 100 on YouTube. I would really appreciate getting that 100. I know 1,000's long-term. Locked On Yankees just got to 1,000. You want the Yankees to beat you? Come on. Subscribe on YouTube, rate and review, download daily. That helps the show grow. Come on, this should be a huge week with the Jose Ramirez re-signing. That's finally, I have never been one of the top 10 baseball podcasts since they started reporting it on site. I might have been at the very beginning when we only had like 10 baseball podcasts, but I've never been since we've expanded. So that's the thing. If you're listening to this one, download all the ones you haven't listened to. Play them at like 10x speed, whatever you got to do, but download every episode. That could help the show. Let's get there this week. Let's show the network that you love Locked On Guardians and want it to stay in its current incarnation. Thank you again for listening. And as I end every show, go Guardians, go.